Hello. Recently I've gotten a few requests to see how I actually solve Boolean Venn diagrams since I made it. So I'm actually going to make a video on how I personally solve them. So I've loaded up a fresh BOM here, and I'm going to go through each module one by one and explain how I would approach it. So the general strategy here is to use the Venn diagrams either in Venn diagram form or on truth table form to make make two circles of the Venn diagram collapse into one circle. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So in parentheses for our first one, I'm actually going to do it on the interactive manual to make it a bit easier to show. We have in parentheses A implies B, and then outside the parentheses NAND C. So first, since we have A and B in parentheses, we're only going to consider A and B for a sec. So if this should be an AND. It's not changing, but that's okay. So we have A and B outside the parentheses. That would be an NOR C. So on the interactive manual, we can do this pretty quickly. So what we're going to do first is take A and B only. So since it's A and B, we can look at the Venn diagram for A and B. In this case, it would be the X and Y diagram, this one right here. And we see that only the middle section is true. So if we do that, only the middle section is true. And everything else is false. Notice I did change the color of the outside, because in the diagram you can see that the outsides are highlighted, and just C by itself and the complete outside are technically outside of the A and B region, so I'm going to mark them as false temporarily. So the second gate we have is the NOR gate, which means that none of the inputs can be true. So if we just look at this diagram, we just have to find a region where both what's already highlighted is false and C is false. So in this case, it would be this region here, and this region here, and this region here. Because in those regions, A and B, the operation A and B was false there, and C is false there. And since the NOR gate, you can't have any of the inputs being true, it would be this region here, and this region here that we need to select. Because all of them have none of the inputs are true. But we have to be careful, since this region here is technically inside the A circle, so it should be true. We have to consider the first operation as the input. So if we go into the module now, we will have to relay to our diffuser the three regions that we have selected here in white. So I would call that, if I was relating, I would call it a none, a top, and a bottom left. And there we go. So if I reset it, we can try this again. So again, we have parentheses on the first position. So we first have A NOR B, NAND C. So let's do A NOR B first. Remember, a NOR gate is when none of the inputs are on. So that means this would be false. All these would be false because either A or B is true in any of them. And since A and B are both false in both these regions that we have selected in green, then they're going to be considered true. Then we have to do the NAND gate, which means that so the first operation and C, they both can't be true. As long as they're both not true, then you're good. So if we look here, so let's first start with this region. So the first operation is false, so that means you're good. So that means there has to be at least one false for the NAND gate to be true. So all of these regions would be true. And there's one more region, and that would be the outside region that also is false. Or I'm sorry, is true, because C is false in this region, so therefore the NAND gate would return a true there. The only region that would end up being false is this region down here, because it's green from the first operation, and it's also true from C. And since a NAND gate can't take a both true input, that means this is going to end up being false. So that I'll tell my diffuser all regions except bottom right. So I can do that on the bottom, and there we go. Now I'm going to do a few more. So now we have B, since B and C in the parentheses, we're going to do those first. We have B, nor C, nor A. So first of all, B nor C, if we remember what the Venn diagram looks like for that one. B nor C, that means everything except the inputs. And then nor A, so that means nothing can be true. So here, one of them is true, so that's not right. Here, one of them is true, so that's not right. In all of these regions, A is true. And since A is not in the parentheses, we actually consider the input A. All these regions, A is true, so none of these are going to be true. But in these three regions down here at the bottom, both A is false since it's not in the A circle, and B nor C is false. So these would actually be our three true regions, the bottom three. So I'll tell my diffuser bottom left, bottom middle, bottom right, or bottom three. And there we go. I'm going to do a few more. Two more actually. So here we have B and C in parentheses, NAND A. So first of all, we do the Venn diagram for B and C. It's going to look like this. And then we have NAND A. So NAND A means they both can't be true. So as long as one is false, then we're good. And if we look, every region that's currently false must be good, because only one of them has to be false. And then this bottom region down here is actually also good, because it's false. A is false in that region since it's not in the A circle, so that's good. However, the middle region is false, would end up being false, because A is true and the first operation is true. So I'd tell my diffuser everything but middle. And that one's done. And finally, we have A, X nor B, in parentheses, implies C. So this is where it starts to get tricky with the arrows, with the implying arrows outside the parentheses, but it's not that difficult. Let's look at it. So if we do the Venn diagram for A, X nor B, we get this one down here. So A, X nor B, it looks something like that. So that means both the inputs have to be on or both have to be off. That would be true in all the green regions. Then we have to do implies C. So it's hard to overlay that Venn diagram on here, but it implies when it's a left implies arrow, meaning it's pointing to the right, which is a bit confusing. We have to look at the truth table, and we see that when the operator on the left side is true and the operator on the right side is false, then that's when we get a false. Everything else is true. So we need to look where the first operator, which would be the green regions and the red regions currently selected, when this operator is true and C is false. So if we look closely, it's just these two regions, this region and this region, because C is false in both of those regions, but the first operator is true in both of those regions. In these two regions, that doesn't work because they're both false. And remember that with this operator, the true-false condition is only false in that region. So everything besides these two are actually true. So then I'll tell my diffuser top, middle, middle right, bottom left, bottom middle, bottom right, or everything but everything but middle left and outside. And there we go. So hopefully you learned something, or even if you don't decide to do my method of actually solving this module, I hope you see how I do it and maybe some other tricks to solving it quicker.